Hey friends, this is Allison Steele, and you're listening to Unravel with Allison, a show where I take a concept that's got me in knots, and we unravel it together. Thanks for being here. Let's get started.
Hey friends, today we are talking about vices and how they affect our vitality. So your vices. A vice is considered a bad or undesirable character trait. So where honesty is a virtue, dishonesty is a vice. So it can be a character trait or it can be habits or behaviors that are regarded as a weakness in someone's character, but not usually serious or as a fault. Like my only vice is that I spend too much on clothes. So vices here are bad or undesirable, not ideal. There is a level of moral depravity or corruption or wickedness that is also factored into these definitions. You know what? I'm going to get on this one first because this is one of my vices. So to me, vices are something that has a hold on you. It creates your baggage. It is your baggage. It's your boundaries and how you choose to stay within them. When you go to a dictionary, we look for definition, and that's not what it was made for. The primary reason for a dictionary is to provide an example of your diction, your enunciation, how to use the word. The meaning is only in there. The definition is only offered to make sure you have the relevant association. So these words, you're honing your diction with the words. That's why you use the dictionary, but we're using it as a tool to convey meaning. You're not supposed to look through a dictionary for truth. You're offered an example. And most of us are using dictionaries for meaning and for depth and for that tertiary reason, not the primary. So when I talk about our vices, and it's not that there's good people and good people do bad things and the bad things are their vices. It's that we have a relationship with our world, and some of those relationships are vices. That I would prefer this over that. Even though I know it's bad, I'm choosing to do it anyway. I got kind of caught up on all of this during a class that I took this semester, environmental science. And it really kind of shook me because I have a hard time with how I'm being taught sustainability and environmental science in general. I don't think anything's necessarily bad or wrong, but the research that I'm doing on my own leads me to questions that aren't really able to be explored in class because it's technically off topic. When we're focused on sustainability, you're not really encouraged to consider what else is out there. The critical thinking questions in the back of each chapter that we had to respond to were very much in a way of labeled as critical thinking, but they're really like these leading questions for you to take responsibility for your role. Questions like if someone were to tell you that climate change isn't real, how would you respond to them? Because that entire chapter just gave us examples of how it's real and how it's affecting us. I know my role as a student is to answer those questions, but in the moment when I'm responding to this, my thought is I wouldn't. That's the only response I have to that question. How would you convince somebody that climate change is real? I wouldn't. I wouldn't spend time or energy on that. And questions about sustainability, I feel the same way. It's kind of like the book is presenting it as they maximize your individual contribution, even after giving us all of these charts and graphs explaining how it's like the industrialized world that's causing all of these issues and whatnot. But it maximizes your individual contribution as if this is what you want, how do you maintain it? But what I see in actuality are a lot of things that can't be maintained that are being sustained. And I still don't really understand why. Like these big companies getting bailouts because our systems would collapse if they didn't. Go ahead and let the systems collapse. If you can't handle it, it's time to change it, not to continue supporting it. And I got this yucky feeling in my stomach when I started really thinking about this and what that means. It was just International Women's Day. All these women are coming together. I'm getting tagged and stuff by other women, and it's real empowering and uplifting. And it's awesome to be a part of a community that celebrates that. But, I think about the women's movement and everything here of we see that we don't hold the power, and we notice who does and how they get it. So we're heck yeah, we want to vote too. If this is how you get there, we want to do that. You don't get to call the shots. Let us participate. After the fact, I can look at this now and think maybe we should have approached that differently. Maybe we should have integrated ourselves at a higher level. Maybe we should have set the stage with a better platform and offered that instead of what we're currently working with. That's a big ask. And the people that tried to do those things in the past didn't survive very long because there's multitudes of games and levels being played here. And the biggest thing that I'm starting to learn here is not that every system is corrupt and damaged, but that everybody has been handed down their game or has developed their game and they don't want to stop playing it. So when you add on these extra layers for you to be able to participate, and then we see like tax breaks and all this crazy stuff that like these billionaires get away with. People are getting away with stuff that is like bypassing the systems that we put into place. So then we add another layer so it's fair, and then they find a way around that. So it's exciting so they can continue to win at their game. But when you see that nothing's going to change, you kind of do get to a point where you're like, fine, I'm in then. Let's play this and see who wins. And that's where this like bootstrap talk comes from. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get on, because the game's not that hard once you learn how to play it. But when I played the game, I didn't like who I was. I wasn't having a good time. I didn't like to do that. And some people can look at me and say that's called growing up. But when big business gets bailouts, and other folks don't. And these are the ones that are causing all of the trouble, financial issues, pollution, overworking their employees, underpaying their employees, moving production overseas and polluting other areas overseas. Like, we just want the world to be mad at us at this point. Like, I cannot comprehend why we're doing what we're doing or how we're getting away with it. But nobody seems to notice. And I think that's because these systems have been so cut and streamlined to save money that we can't see anymore that nobody's in charge anymore. Like, nobody's in charge. There's not enough hustle and bustle. There's not enough happening. There's not enough eyes that can see beyond their scope to truly offer anything valuable to a company right now. Because the company makes it so blind. They put blinders on so you can stay within your scope and you can be a powerhouse within your scope. You can stay relevant within your scope. You can do the one thing that nobody else does, and that's how you get to stick around in these big companies. But then there are still the worker ants, and we're supposed to just play along because we don't have any other options. So when I'm stuck in a place that I don't want to be in, and I use my vices to have a good time when I am not having a good time. My vices are like a pacifier to a baby. It's something I'll get pouty about. It's something that I'm going to demand preference for. So when I'm sad and depressed and life is hard and I go out and have a couple drinks and that feels better, I'm not saying that's a good way to live or that that's even sustainable or desirable. But in those moments where it makes me feel better, I can absolutely justify my actions, because what else? Not doing it also sucks. Doing it's bad for my health, but I'm having a good time. So I'm willing to make that trade-off. Not so much these days, but that's how past Allison was. And then I get to a point where, like how I am now, I'm not interested in drinking because I don't like how I feel when I wake up in the morning. I'm not interested in drinking because I'm not proud of my behavior when I'm under the influence. In recent situations where I've been drinking, I've started to pay attention to how I feel while I'm drinking. And it's really not a good time either. Because even though I'm loose enough to laugh and have a good time, when I stop and really sit with my body and what my body feels like, we don't like this. It doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel better. And that's how I'm able to just look at alcohol now like a toy to sit on the shelf that I've outgrown. And sometimes I still may have a glass, but I'm not drinking like I used to drink. But I'm also not ashamed of how I used to drink, because I was still learning, I was still figuring it out, and I still knew that there were better ways, and I knew it was short term. But when it started gradually getting to a long-term predicament, and I told myself, you have to stop drinking, it was not like putting a toy on a shelf. It was like, you took my pacifier. That's the one thing I like anymore. Why are you taking this from me? I gave this thing so much power because of the relief that it gave me. I never thought that 5 years later I'd be indifferent about it. I'm also not here for the definition of vice that talks about you being a bad person or you being immoral or you being depraved or anything that knocks you down as a person. I don't get behind the idea of good people and bad people. We are all just people, and some of us do good things sometimes and some of us do bad things sometimes. Some good is better than others and some bad is worse than others. So I'm not going into a judgment train here. But that environmental science class, I had a presentation at the end of the semester. And it got me to a point where I was very nervous because it could be about any topic. I don't like that kind of structure. I don't want to pick something out. I want you to tell me what to do so I can stay on topic. Because when I get off topic, it's like my thoughts get too big and I cross a line where I'm no longer understood. And I don't know where we fell off. And now people are focused on the anomaly of whatever I threw out there that they didn't understand rather than the point that I'm trying to make in the long run. I don't like coming up with stuff on my own. Give me a rubric. Give me something to work with and I will work with that. But if you tell me I can work with anything, I am uncomfortable. So naturally, I waited to the last minute to do it. And I'm no longer ashamed of that procrastination either, because I've come to learn that if I give myself time to do it, I will do the same project 8 different times because I keep changing the topic because I'm so inspired by what I'm learning. I will continue to learn and continue to do it and switch my topic a million times. So if I wait to the last minute to do it, I only have time to do it once. And I know I'm definitely capable of that, but I'm not going to put 8 hours into a 1-hour project, except that I will if I start early. I still don't know how to manage that kind of time yet, but I don't know. Stay tuned. Maybe I'll have something for you down the road. But all the big ideas that I had in that class that I felt compressed, like I couldn't share or wouldn't even bother asking because it wasn't relevant and it didn't make sense, but I was curious about it. So I kind of played with it on my own in my spare time. Put all of that into this project titled Food Sustainability, Vitality, Scarcity, and Cultural Influence. So I lead in with the fact that, our food production leads to soil, water, and air pollution at exuberant rates, leads to biodiversity loss and human health concerns. So overall, food production has reduced in recent years. And presently, there is enough food being produced to meet the basic nutritional needs of every human on the planet. But humans still deal with issues of food insecurity, not knowing where their next meal is coming from, not having enough nutrition to maintain their vitality. So this food insecurity where you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you don't have enough to eat, it keeps people from leading healthy and active lives. So when I address vitality moving forward, I'm talking about the ability to lead active and healthy lives. Countries that don't have access to resources or money like we do, poverty-stricken, their affordable diet is often a low protein and high carbohydrate diet. Here in America, we have similar issues of overnutrition in the same dietary regards of low protein, high carbohydrate. Almost 3 of every 4 adults over age 20 in the US are overweight or obese. And given that information, I think it's safe to say that humans in general are lacking vitality. And this over and undernutrition is a little gross when we take into consideration the fact that we have enough food on the planet to meet the basic needs of every human. The 2022 census revealed that 39.7 Americans are in poverty. And this poverty is on a scale based on what your income is and how many people are living in your household. It doesn't take into account the fact that you might be paying for your children's college. It doesn't take into account the fact that you might be drowning in medical debt. It doesn't take into account that you might have to be caring financially for your parents. It doesn't take the individual into account. So with 37.9 million Americans in poverty, like these poverty diets, high carb, low protein, are unsustainable for human vitality despite the available resources. Why? If it's available and it's accessible, how is it not affordable? We ask ourselves, who's going to pay for that? We can bail out these big businesses, but we can't take care of our individual people. When we take into consideration that these companies can come in and move into areas, pollute the crap out of them, and then look at the local folk like it's their problem that they can't afford to clean it up, if you can come in and make the mess, you can pull through and clean up the mess. Financially, you're able to do that. It's just a matter of priority, not affordability, priority. Affordability is just priority when you have the resources available. If there's a meteor hurling towards the earth and we catch it in time to do something about it, are we going to sit around and argue who's going to pay for that? Or are we going to compile our resources, band together, and come up with a solution? Because I'm pretty sure that's what we'll do. We'll have zero vitality if we don't exist. We would focus on keeping ourselves and our planet alive and worry about who's going to pay for that later. Affordability is not money. It's priority. So when I was giving this presentation, I had to kind of set the stage a little bit because we're students in the field of media, production, broadcasting, promotions. You get a taste of all of it. A big question that we start with, once we have a good idea, our next thing is who's going to pay for that? And it's important to lay that out there because you have to find your target audience. You can't just go spouting your stuff in every area and thinking that it's going to sell. When you're actually promoting yourself, when you're promoting a brand, you have to think, okay, who is this made for and who's going to appreciate it? What's your target? Because if you put all of your effort into just getting it out wherever you can get it out and you don't focus on that niche, you're going to waste all your money on people who aren't interested. Where if you find people who are interested, you can expand from that. You can target that market and attract your ideal customers. So after the target market's all figured out, then we get into promotions. When you reach out to the people with your idea, how do we do it? How do we sell? You state a problem, you offer details, and you provide the solution. It reaches out to the person, to the individual, hits them in the ears and says, "Psst, I'm talking to you. I know you hate this. We hate it too. Here's what we're going to do about it. This product is a game changer. Try it for yourself. It's compelling. It's enticing. It's exciting. It's promotions. State the problem. Offer details. Offer a solution." With that in mind, let's go to 1973. There's an expose on Nestle's third world baby formula promotions called Babies Mean Business. This expose claimed that Nestle created a need where none existed. In the business, we call that stating the problem. They claimed that Nestle convinced consumers that the products were indispensable. In the business, we call that providing details. They also claimed that Nestle provided free samples of baby formula to mothers leaving the hospital after delivering their babies. We call that offering a solution. The issue here is that they were targeting Asian, African, and Latin American poverty-stricken cities. So when you ask who is going to pay for that, why are you going to poverty-stricken cities? You capitalize on poverty is the answer. Now, this was in the 70s, so more information has come out about breast milk and immunological health since then. But here's why it was a problem. It's less healthy for the baby, and they can't afford baby formula, so it's more expensive. With breast milk production, you have a use it or lose it system going on here. The baby has to take the milk to tell your body to make more. So if your baby isn't eating, you're not producing. It's not like riding a bike where you can just get back on and go. It's a give and take process. And if there's no taking, there's no making, which permanently alters the production and establishes dependency on the formula when that baby comes straight out of the hospital drinking it. The mother's body doesn't have the indicators to continue providing that. The baby isn't dependent on the mother, so the mother doesn't supply. And additionally, there is a natural give and take, a natural exchange that happens between the baby's saliva and the breast cells, where they communicate immunological needs that optimize the baby's microbiome. If the baby needs a certain nutrient, the saliva will communicate that with the breast cells will communicate it with the body, and they will produce that nutrient in excess to supply it to the baby in order to maintain an optimal microbiome. So when you give these mothers formula straight out of the hospital, you're depriving them of this healthy exchange. And whether or not they knew that back then, I'm not sure. I don't know if that had been studied to this extent, but at that time, there also was that push for breast is best. So right off the bat, poverty-stricken cities, you're destroying the relationship between the mother and the baby that provides its health and immunological needs. You're establishing dependency on your product because the mother's body doesn't know that she needs to be making it, so she doesn't. And now they have no money and they're expected to feed their baby, but you work with what you got. So what they were doing is taking their dirty water to make baby formula. And when they couldn't afford baby formula, they are diluting it with more dirty water. And again, they don't have access to this natural healthcare system that exists between the mother and the baby. It's killing people. It's killing babies. Emotional wreckage on communities. There's this idea here that once you know better, you do better. So I can look in the past at all these shitty things that went down, and I can see it from the promotion side of things. I can see it as maybe it wasn't somebody being an evil monster, but just that they were trying to promote their product. I still can't make sense of why you target poverty. I'm not going to make a justification for that. That's yucky. But from the sales standpoint, I'm just saying, I understand how people are just doing their jobs and maybe not understanding what they're contributing to. But now it's 2024 and we know better. So I have to ask, are we doing better? I'm going to play for you this little clip that was, it's a CNN short. This was from back in February, so it's fairly recent, and it's not Nestle, it's Kellogg's.
Is it let them eat cake or let them eat Kellogg's?
The maker of Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops has a controversial marketing campaign. Cereal for dinner.
The price of a bowl of cereal with milk and with fruit is less than $1. So you can imagine why a consumer under pressure might find that to be a good place to go.
When I say cereal, you say dinner. Cereal. Dinner! Cereal.
Dinner! Kellogg's CEO Gary Pilnick says the campaign is aimed at people who are struggling with inflation, and he's confident in the ad's message.
The idea of having cereal for dinner, is there the potential for that to land the wrong way?
We don't think so. In fact, it's landing really well right now.
But some people on social media say the ad misses the mark.
I don't want to hear it from anyone rich enough to call it the cereal category.
This is not the time for a girl dinner campaign, sir. No.
He's not only managed to insult low-income families, but to push Kellogg's cereal in one sentence.
Wasn't that fun? We're still doing it. We're still capitalizing on poverty. When you take a look at the nutrition facts on a single-serve box of Frosted Flakes, like the ones that you find at a hotel, the single-serve box has 30 grams of total carbohydrates and 1 gram of protein. So instead of how can we sustain this, I think our real question should be what are we sustaining? And what are our alternatives? When you take into account the fact that 10 companies and their subsidiaries are the ones that provide basically all of our products, and 2 of those companies are Nestle and Kellogg's, you do have to ask yourself, what are we sustaining and what are our alternatives? Is food scarcity the issue? I don't think it is, because we know that we have enough food to meet the basic nutritional needs of every human being. But then again, I have to take into account that it's these 10 companies that are providing these things. It's this corporate influence that's doing the research, that is handling the marketing. They're the ones telling us what's good for us and what isn't. So to really dial this in, when you have a dependency on alcohol, chemicals, substances, there are certain traits that are displayed. I'm going to go over these traits one by one, partnered with their corporate influence that I see. One trait is impulsivity. We capitalize on that with same-day shipping. Another trait is nonconformity. We capitalize on that with suggested advertising, targeted messages. Another trait is anxiety, which we capitalize on by limited offerings, limited time sales, fear of missing out, do it now or else. Another trait is having low tolerance for stress. Brand recognition plays right into that. If you're not willing to try something new, but this brand comes out with it, maybe you'll try this brand because you know that you like their other stuff. Sensation seeking, we capitalize on that with advertisements. That family was excited to have cereal for dinner. That is a sensation. Food is also a sensation, where it's fun to make your own sourdough and nurture your starter. It's precious to think about making family recipes and remembering how your grandma taught you. The sensation seeking is a major part of this. Another trait is blame shifting. We capitalize on this by saying, who is in charge? You're the one that's still buying them. Like, yeah, we're making it, but you keep buying them, so that's why we keep making it. You're the one charging your card as an individual to buy these things. Is this not what you want? Except they're not asking that. They're just giving you more and more and more of what they provide because that's all they offer. So whose fault is it really when this is all we have to work with? And we're also convinced that we need it. So I'm going to ask you real quick, could you live without your devices? Like a cell phone? Of course you could, because you have. You weren't born with a cell phone in your hand. You know you can live without one. But then you have to factor in society. In today's age, where a phone number and an email address is basically just as important to function in society as a social security card or a photo ID. Like, if you don't have those, you're probably not getting a job. So could you live without your device? Could you live without your cell phone? Probably. Will you? Probably not. But if there was a blackout and everybody didn't have access to it, for sure you could, because we'd figure something else out together. So it's really not a question on can you handle it? Are you willing to live like that? When we take into consideration, again, that idea of when you know better, you do better. And then with vices and vitality, like when I would go to the doctors with depression and anxiety, and we'd go through all the checklists and get to the point where we talk about how much I drink and I'm honest. The results from everything I did was like, yes, well, turns out you have a substance abuse problem. And I just disagreed because medically you are correct. Medically, from your check boxes, this is problematic, but it's not the root cause. This is actually on the tail end of things. I'm doing this because it feels better than all those other problems. So you don't get to call this the problem. I can isolate it if necessary, but it's not fair to call that the problem and to write me off for that. There was something else happening and I didn't know what. And since I couldn't figure it out, I still had to exist. So I went headfirst into my vices. I'm not suggesting that for anybody. I don't think it's a great idea. But I'm saying that I knew better and I didn't do better on purpose because it was easier and more comfortable and I wasn't getting help elsewhere and I didn't know what else to do. So if I had to be here, this is what I'm doing. You take into account that the CDC says that tobacco use is the leading cause of preventable disease, disability, and death in the United States. We also have to take into account that it's still a thriving industry. So with all that being said, would you consider that your dietary preferences are a vice? I would hear that question and tell you no, but I formulated the question based off of how I felt about bacon. Bacon is good. It's good for my taste buds. It makes me happy. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of commotion about vegan and vegetarian diets being healthier for you. There were documentaries coming out with like slaughterhouses and going through the production of how terrible this stuff is for the animals and for your body. I know better, and I still chose not to do better because I like the way it tastes. I wouldn't even consider a vegetarian diet because I couldn't see a version of myself sitting with a plate of bacon in front of me and not eating it. It's as simple as that. Like, I wasn't willing to live in a world like that. So then as I grow up, of course I can live without bacon. I absolutely could live without bacon. But would I consider that as a lifestyle? I don't know. So again, I ask, what are our alternatives? And I'm not talking about fake meat, and I'm not talking about a vegetarian diet. Last year, I read a book by Mark Gober called An End to Upside Down Thinking, dispelling the myth that the brain produces consciousness and the implications for everyday life. In the book, he explores the compelling scientific evidence from a diverse set of disciplines, ranging from psychic phenomena to near-death experiences to quantum physics. Today's disarray around the globe can be linked at its core to a fundamental misunderstanding of our reality. This book aims to shift our collective outlook, reshaping our view of human potential and how we treat one another. This book's implications encourage much-needed revisions in science, technology, and medicine. General readers will find comfort in the implied worldview, which will impact their happiness and everyday decisions related to business, health, and politics. It takes into account what you think you know versus what we actually know, and who is saying this, and who's calling the shots, and where did it come from, and what are other cultures doing? What are other cultures doing that are the same? What are other cultures doing that are different? What is available to us that we don't know? The biggest thing that I took from that, changing my belief system entirely, was the impact of intention in the moment and how big that factors into your reality. So like, who's responsible for stopping cancer? Whose job is that right now? Drug companies are definitely looking into it because that's what they do. I don't think anybody is looking for like a workaround, but I don't think people actually understand how cancer works. I think we just see how it spreads. Not that I have all the answers, but when I see the power of intention and how that can fluctuate numbers on a dramatic scale, how it can destroy predictability, I would just set up like this proposition: take 1 month and reach out to everybody who's been newly diagnosed with cancer, whatever their situation, whatever their cancer, and invite them to a thought practice. Instead of saying, your specific type of cancer has this percentage of a survival rate, you could potentially be in that percentage. Let's figure out how to get it done. And then everybody rallies like, fight cancer. Cancer's a dick. Everybody, we can beat this. Great. But what if it wasn't a fight? What if you didn't set it up mentally like it was a battle? What if you set it up like a game? Like, this is happening, so it is what it is. We're going to try something new because we think all we know about the placebo effect is that people can heal themselves by thinking they're being healed. We don't look into that, though. That's not what we're measuring when we do those tests. We're not going to look into the placebo effect. We're going to change our systems, change our medication, roll out something new to try again later. Instead of all of that, we just connect people. Let them know you and other people who are starting at this exact same stage of awareness, not at the same stage of cancer, but you all just became aware of this. And you have so much potential energy in you about this thing that is going to unfold until it's done. So instead of trying to reach for that percentage of survivors, we want you to take 5 minutes of every day. Instead of thinking about how you want to be in that top percentage because you want to keep on living, think of yourself and everybody else in this group that has been given the same news to some extent that you were just given. You're not fighting for that percentage. You're not fighting to be the alive one at the end of all of this. Get rid of those thoughts early on. Take 5 minutes out of every day and think about all the people that are in the same space as you and how you're all feeling similar, even with different circumstances. And think together, we can change that percentage. Not that I have to be one of that percentage, but I can heal and they can heal and we can heal. This trifecta that each person has the potential to express. If everybody got in on that game and looked at it as a game, like, holy crap, what if like we're the first example to actually cure cancer? What if by believing that we can do it and encouraging others around us in that belief, supporting that belief from afar, not an attack that we have to kick cancer's ass, but that collectively we'll overcome this? Maybe you do. Maybe you change that percentage. Maybe you change that bar. When enough people believe in it and back it up and support it, believe that they can be healed, and at such an exponential magnitude that they can do it together, I don't know. I just think maybe there's something else we could be trying. Mark Gober's book talks about people who don't eat. I couldn't believe that until I took more of the book in. I really couldn't believe that. You can't tell me that people don't eat because of everything we know, everything we've been taught about food and nutrition and everything. I couldn't comprehend that. So when I did this, I believed it by the time I was done reading the book, but I also did research on my own. I came across this article from 2017 with this couple that claimed to have a food-free lifestyle for like the past 9 years. Like the wife was pregnant and didn't eat. They have 2 kids that eat a little bit of fruit and maybe some vegetable broth. But other than that, they don't eat. And first I thought, how sad for those kids, because that's just like when you're poor growing up and you just have to eat the same stuff over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then you get to go to your friend's house and they got name brand Pop-Tarts. You're like, yes. What's that all about? Or if you lived in a house where you didn't have soda pop and you go to a buddy's house and you get soda pop for the first time, it's like crack. So I was worried about those kids at first, like not even for their health, because if one of them's at least 5 years old, they got to figure it out. They can maintain their vitality. But that relationship tie with food that I had, like I couldn't separate that from their kids. I thought this is actually going to be detrimental based on their exposure down the road, which is so silly because they probably have such a stronger connection to themselves that they don't see it even as missing out. So that was back in 2017. And now 2024, this dude is still like hosting retreats, workshops, and master classes. But after that first article came out, there was so much media backlash on that, saying that it's obviously a lie and there's no way in hell and somebody's lying. It's like how I felt, when I hear about the Virgin Mary having baby Jesus. Somebody's lying because that's not how our bodies work. Well, that's not how our bodies work now. And I can't claim anything for the Virgin Mary. I don't really know what's up there. I like to lean more towards the idea of immaculate conception, but I also think that there were ties that manifestation was a little bit more obvious. So you had to like verbalize that you want that outcome, have it agreed upon by a partner for it to physically manifest. Like vitality had to be deposited, and not just with like a specimen exchange, but the desire had to be so deeply present for conception. I think there were a lot of little practices like this back. Let's get off that topic. I'm done with that topic. But Mark Gober's book and this idea led me to read more. So this led me down a full rabbit hole, finding words like breatharian, a photon diet, light nutrition. People are doing this all around the world. People are writing books about it. People are telling their stories. And they're not just Tibetan monks. They're everyday people doing everyday things in this way. Like I'm second guessing my relationship with bacon. The idea here is that you use prana as your vitality. Prana, this life force energy that exists around us, the strongest, most consistent resource available. You don't have to worry about sustainability with prana. It exists in our surroundings. You can only achieve prana as your vitality source when your nervous system is balanced and engaged, though, according to the very little bit of research that I've done on this topic. When there's an imbalance with your nervous system, so like poverty, wartime, addiction, and dependencies, you have a strong belief of lack. When you're convinced that you're lacking or like you feel hungry, you don't have access to prana as a vital resource. When there's something else inside of you saying, but my needs aren't met. And I don't really know how this works yet. But when I think of like nutrient supplements, like if you're not going to eat, at least take your supplements. Make sure that your vitamin levels are good, right? Still maybe not. I mean, we were told that we were made in God's image, that our bodies are perfect, but we don't treat our bodies like they're perfect. We don't anticipate perfection. That'd be irresponsible, right? Because when you know how this works, you expect it to work a certain way. But we've only been told how this works. We haven't explored this side of it very much. And we've been encouraged not to because it's unhealthy and will lead to death, malnutrition. So if you take supplements and you take too many, you pee out the excess. Your body turns it into waste when there's too much. But your thresholds will be met and you will have that resource in your body now. And you don't overdo it because your body wastes what it doesn't need. So I think about giving children melatonin to get them to sleep better. We're also told to not do that because your body naturally produces melatonin. And by introducing the supplement, you're creating a dependency on the supplement, just like baby formula versus breast milk. You're interrupting the relationship that already exists and that is fine on its own. And you're diminishing the ability for this thing to create. But your body doesn't work the same way always, all the time. Your body changes. Your body develops. Your body creates naturally. You're regenerating constantly. Your perpetual motion regeneration. So maybe there's an aspect here where we kind of just got addicted to food early on. We were no longer able to maintain those supplements. And that's when we started actually measuring these things, is when the addiction was already in full force, when the body wasn't capable of producing these things on its own anymore. Now we don't even give ourselves a sample of that. We won't even attempt it because it's so dangerous. We wouldn't even try it out on babies because that is dangerous. Like, if you threw that idea out there to not feed babies, I'm not going to be the one to suggest that. But for fun, the rest of that class, it's fun to look at the outcome, assuming that we make this vitality shift and eliminate the idea of scarcity entirely. Without the need for food at our present rate of consumption, we'd immediately eliminate industrialized agriculture pollution, reclaim our land, and plant desired resources. We would reduce waste of land, water, and energy. Our individual costs would go down because we wouldn't have to pay for groceries. We'd reduce our personal waste. So much garbage in creating a meal. Water wasted in dishwashing. If your body isn't consuming as much, your body isn't expelling as much. You're not creating personal waste. So you're saving money, even at the toilet. You're saving water there. You're saving toilet paper costs. I mean, during COVID, toilet paper scarcity was a big freaking deal. And bidets are available and everything too, but like everybody went and was terrified for this scarcity that they created it. They overpurchased and we didn't have our resources available for everybody else. But I wrapped up that whole presentation with just reminding my fellow classmates that we are the new media. And while the school's preparing us for a career in facts, truth, promotions, and immediacy, I want to encourage everybody to consider, entertain, and share the anomalies. Explore your realm of possibility. Be honest with yourself about what your vices are, and be open enough to learning that you might have some more you don't know about. Vices are delivered as sins. They don't have to be.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unravel with Allison. If you have any feedback, questions, want to chit chat, or stay up to date on new releases, follow me on Instagram at Allison K. Steele. Let's keep in touch. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next episode.